Welcome to Brother Nature. You are getting a live look at the Soo Locks, one of the modern marvels of today's engineering and what helps facilitate all the shipping traffic moving through the Great Lakes. Now, I will say, probably not as busy as they normally are, and that's because of all the ice. Incidentally, is our theme this week. We're looking at ice on the Great Lakes, as well as some of the fun little hot spots that are quite cold this time of year, all around, specifically up on the Upper Peninsula, which is where we actually kick off today's Brother Nature episode. I'm Jack Nissen. I'm so happy to have you all here with me. Now, let's take a look at our little vantage over on Drummond Island.
Drummond Island is a unique and great place to come. It's over the bridge, obviously. You have to go over Mackinac Bridge, stay on 75, get off on 134, and drive to Drummond. You get on a ferry and detour. You cross over. It's a mile across from Detour to Drummond Island. We're the furthest east on the map. It's an amazing place to be. We have 80 miles of groomed snowmobile trails. There's 70 miles of paved roads. There's approximately 1,100 residents year-round. You could put approximately roughly 40 Mackinac Islands on Drummond Island. So that's how big we are.
I did see that the international crossing was sort of that's what found my news feed on social media this past week, and I'm guessing I'm not the only one. Tell me a little bit about it. Where does it go? How long is it? And how do you guys mark the trail?
So it goes to Milford Haven, Canada, which is on St. Joe's Island, and they mark it every 1/10 of a mile with either an evergreen tree or a cedar post that has reflectors on it. It's put in by volunteers.
It's 12 miles long. It's approximately 12 miles over there. It's a nice ride. There's a lot of people who are doing it. You need to get on your phone and get the CBP app, the Rome app, and communicate with Canada, if you're coming, or vice versa, both ways. You have to download the app.
How do the volunteers put the trees in the ice?
They drill with an ice auger into it a little bit, and then I don't think they put more snow in it. I think they just do enough where the tree is propped up.
Where did the trees come from?
They're Christmas trees.
Yeah, they're donated.
So a lot of people, they'll do fresh cut Christmas trees, and then they'll bring them down to Yacht Haven where it starts and leave them in a pile. And then whatever they don't have, they'll cut off out of the woods.
And then I have to wonder I don't know if there's a day when the ice bridge officially closes, but are the trees removed? What happens to them after it ends?
They're left there. So I have a friend who works on the ferry, and one year he sent a video to one of our group chats, and there's just a piece of ice with a Christmas tree floating down.
Describe to me what it's like to be out on this bridge. I have to imagine it's kind of cold this time of year.
It is. And it's so my first couple years here riding on the ice with snowmobiles, it's crazy because you'll be out in a spot and you'll be like, I was in a boat in this same location 3 months ago. So it's unique. But it is cold. The last couple days we've had -degree weather, and then it's 20 degrees today, which is warm to us.
When it comes to tourism on Drummond Island, not just in the winter, but year round, what sort of things can tourists do there?
So we have, in the summer, there's off-roading. Obviously, since we're an island, there's a lot of water recreation. So paddleboarding, kayaking, motorboats. A lot of people, they'll come up and they'll go fishing for the perch in the spring and walleye. Those are huge here. And then in the winter, we have cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, snowmobiling, just being outside, ice fishing, all of that stuff.
We get a lot of people who, go rock hunting. So our rock here obviously is the pudding stone, and people are constantly looking for them. They're out there. They're looking for the pudding stones.
I've never heard of a pudding stone, and I feel like I just committed sacrilege as a Michigander.
No, now you have to go look.
They're prominently found on Drummond and then St. Joe's Island. So it's like sometimes, occasionally, people will find them in a farm field downstate, but they're
very seldom.
very well known here.
Is this like the Petoskey Stone's cousin, kinda?
Kinda, yeah.
Pretty much.
But we're prettier.
Heard of that before, and frankly, I'm a little embarrassed, which is obviously why I'm sharing it with all of you. That was Christina Colo and Ashley Astelos, who run the tourism bureau up there. Big thank you to all of them. And yes, that is a temporary ice bridge you can cross right now if you want to. Moving a little further west and a little further south, we have another fun trip over on Mackinac Island. Take a listen.
It feels like it's out of a Disney movie. I had some people come into the store this summer and this fall, and they're like, this is like a Hallmark movie. You have a cookie store on Mackinac Island.
It gives people an opportunity to see Mackinac Island in the winter. And since it is like the summer destination in Michigan, I think you're providing people with something that they may know so well, but they've never seen this side of before.
It seems like everybody is there just to visit or, there for the summer, but there really are those of us who live there year round, and we are going about our daily lives. And this is our reality, even in the winter. And I think it's I just think, winter has its own complete magical element. We grew up vacationing on Mackinac. When I was little, I told my grandmother that I was going to teach 3rd grade and live on the island when I was like in 5th grade. So 50% right is pretty good for that age, I think. I've always loved it. Then in college, I did 2 summers working at Grand Hotel. And after I graduated, I was doing some work for my parents and bumped into the then vice president of Mission Point and started working at Mission Point in 2016. And then eventually moved to Grand Hotel. And then after Grand Hotel sold in 2020, we moved off the island to Harbor Springs. And then 1 month after our second child, our son, was born, my husband got a phone call saying, would you ever consider coming back to Mackinac? We didn't even consider, we just started packing. We love it so much. And my mom and my sister, we all work together and own the business together, to have a shop on Mackinac. And that becomes kind of hard to imagine if you're not living on the island. So when we moved back 1 year later, a shop became available and we started renovation and opened last year. So it's been a dream. It feels like it's all sort of falling into place.
I don't know if what your expectation was for sharing your videos and your experience on the island, but tell me a little bit about that.
We were off island for the holidays because my family lives in Hessel and my husband's they're in Harbor Springs and they wanted to spend some time with the kids. And so I said to my sister, I hope you're ready to package some cookies because when I get back, I'm going to show what life is like in the winter. Every time I wake up, we have hundreds or thousands more followers. It's really fun. I mean, it's so fun to share. I just really feel like the life that we're living here, we're so lucky and it's so much fun and it's so beautiful and so magical that the internet could use some more of that. And it's fun for me to show, everyday life. And it, helps me realize how special it is too. I think sometimes you get caught up in the daily life and you don't realize how cool the things you're doing are. And so that's been a fun aspect.
So what is the cookie side of this then?
So my mother she's always been a home baker. She was doing the trad wife thing before social media was ever popular or existed. And she created these cookie recipes and we never, you're little, you're like, these are just my mom's cookie recipes. Well, then we would bring them to bake sales and people were like fighting over them. So we started to realize that maybe they weren't, your average chocolate chip cookie. We'd love to share these cookies with everyone. And they've been such a part of our lives. And so we always just said, if we're going to do another brick and mortar, we'd love to do it on Mackinac. There isn't a cookie store. Honestly, I think we have the smallest store on the island, and somebody can correct me who's more familiar with every shop on the island, but it is just a tiny little sliver of cuteness on the Arnold dock. We do coffee and espresso. We have clothing also and gifts. And then we've got cookies. We're going to be doing, I think my sister's working on some like breakfast scone recipes for this upcoming summer.
Conlin, and she runs the Mackinac Island Cookie Co. account on Instagram, and of course has a little shop over on Mackinac Island itself. I can't think of someone more Youper in Michigan than her. Big thank you to her for talking to us as well. Go find her on Instagram. She's got some of the best content you'll find, especially if you're looking for some slice of life over in Michigan. All right, coming up, we got to take a little bit of a step back as far as ice coverage in the Great Lakes goes. Stay here for a whole lot more. Welcome back to Brother Nature. Yeah, one of the biggest parts of this winter has been the ice coverage on the Great Lakes. It's had quite a bit of influence, as it always does, over our entire region, but because of all that ice coverage, that means that there might be a little bit of difference based on the weather you're seeing, the shoreline erosion, and of course, that pesky lake effect snow. Take a listen. When we think about ice on the Great Lakes, it seems like it's part of a much larger system that's all working together.
Great question. It's a part of the system that is very true. It modulates weather system, but when it comes to regional system, it really actively change the local weather. Lake effect is a prime example. It's a hazardous weather that happens when a cold air mass moves over a warm lake. And then the cold air mass absorbs a lot of heat and moisture from the warm lake surface. This is a key ingredient for lake effect snow bands. Ice cover essentially shut down the supply of heat and moisture because it's like a lid to a lake. And that's why we see more lake effect snow event in late fall to early winter when the lake is still open and ice is beginning to form. Once the lake ice fully develops and covers a large part of the lakes, it suppresses the lake effect. There are a number of community activities such as ice festivals and winter festivals, community event, which is a very important part of people's life. And without having stable ice cover, it's very hard to plan for such event. So that's implications to cultural aspect. If you have a stable ice cover on the shore, it's called shore-fast ice or land-fast ice. It serves as a protection for the shoreline, from the high wind waves. Winter is the windiest season that result in very high dangerous waves. And if you lose protection of stable lake ice, your shoreline will be more vulnerable to such high waves. And in the longer term, that might lead to a coastal erosion.
I don't know if you've been tracking ice coverage this year, but it seems like we've had a little bit more than we have had in the past.
Right. Yeah, we are, as of yesterday, we are well above 50-year historical average.
Probably doesn't happen a whole lot, I'm guessing.
No, and it's an interesting year because we had a very slow start of ice onset this winter mainly because we have such a warm fall. Like October was really warm, and then the situation suddenly shifted to colder direction, and we had a pretty cold December and January, and that really kickstart ice, and then ice cover on the lakes caught up pretty quickly. If we look at the historical perspective, we do see a declining trend in Great Lake ice coverage. It is accompanied by large year-by-year fluctuations, a lot of up and down, overlaying the long-term declining trend. And as a result, we are seeing cold winter, even in the recent years. For example, 2019 was pretty cold. 2015 and 14 was historical cold winters too. And likely this ongoing winter will become colder than normal. We are seeing more unstable ice, because ice is so important part of the life and regional Earth system, there's also implications to navigation. There are many ships operating within the Great Lakes and also in and out of the Great Lakes. And ice, as you can imagine, ice is an obstacle for navigation. It's dangerous for commercial vessels to run into big pile of ice. And there are federal ice breaking operations that has been helping those vessels so that they can navigate safely. So loss of ice might be maybe a positive news for navigation aspect, but at the same time, we're still seeing pretty good and persistent ice in connecting channels across different Great Lakes.
That was Dr. Ayumi Fujisaki Minomi. She was a big help in explaining a lot of the science that gets behind this. But actually, in my opinion, the most interesting fact she told me was about how pancake ice forms. Take a listen.
Okay. And have you heard of pancake ice before?
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
Can you tell me about pancake ice?
Sure, it's a beauty of what nature can produce actually. So in the early stage of ice formation, you first have to have a super cold water, right? And then when the water is freezing point or slightly below freezing point, it starts to form a dust of ice, and it's a so-called fragile ice. And then once you have sufficient density of fragile ice, it just starts to correct together. And then there's a wave action going. Having wave is very important. So you don't get pancake ice in small lake. You only get it in large water body, just like Great Lakes or oceans. And that wave action really helps make the disc shape of ice. And that's what people call pancake ice.
The science is pretty interesting, but at the same time, the visuals are just so cool, which I just can't get enough of. All right, coming up after the break, we're going to take a little look into the future at one really cool volunteer opportunity right here in Metro Detroit. Stay here for more. And welcome back. So, I actually got to catch up with someone from the Friends of the Rouge nonprofit hanging out down in Wayne County. And boy, oh boy, do they got a whole lot of interesting stuff going on. Especially coming up later this month is the Frog and Toad Survey for any volunteers who want to take a gander, sort of searching for some amphibians. Boy, do we have some news for you. Take a listen. The Friends of the Rouge needs you for their annual Frog and Toad Survey. Yes, that's coming up this year. And with me to explain a little bit more, we have Lauren Eaton with Friends of the Rouge. Lauren, hello.
Hi.
So quickly for the audience, tell us, what do you do down at Friends of the Rouge?
So we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and our mission is to restore, protect, and enhance the Rouge River watershed. And we do that through our programming, which includes monitoring, restoration, and a water trail or paddling program.
And I assume that is a year-round endeavor.
It is, yes. We have events all year round. You can come out and volunteer with us for some of our bug hunts, or we have some rain garden plantings, or a paddle survey, or you could come out and look for frogs with us.
So, looking for frogs. Tell me, what is the actual goal of the Frog and Toad Survey?
So we are looking for frogs and toads because they are our canary in a coal mine for wetland habitat. And so they depend on wetlands to live. And if we find a diverse number and type of frogs in an area, that tells us that there's a high quality habitat, high quality wetlands there. And in Michigan, we've lost about 60% of our wetlands. And for example, in Wayne County, we've lost about 90% of our wetlands. So it's really important for us to know where those high quality habitats still exist, and or to protect and conserve and or restore some habitat for our amphibians.
Gotcha. And we're looking for 8 amphibians, it seems like?
Yes, so we've got 7 species of frogs and 1 species of toad that we train our volunteers. We train them. This is just a listening survey, so we don't go out and catch them. We just go out and listen for them.
And I understand you even have some audio for us
yes.
based on what the volunteers are going to be listening for.
Yes.
Why don't you play some of them for us?
So the first one is a wood frog. And so we kind of break our frogs up into early calling species and late calling species. So these are their breeding calls. And so they call depending on, the breeding time and the temperature outside. And so this is a wood frog. It's an early calling species. And I think that it sounds like a duck quacking or a chicken clucking. So if you hear that, that is a wood frog, and they look almost like they have an eye mask out there. So they like the woods, as they are found in deciduous mature forests, and they use temporary shallow ponds for their breeding.
Okay, and what else we got here?
We have a northern leopard frog, and we like to say that their call sounds like a snore.
That's pretty noisy.
Yep. And there was another species out there. So you'll often hear multiple calling at once. And then this is a bullfrog, and it sounds like if you were to kind of breathe into a jug, like rum, rum, rum. So Jeremiah. Jeremiah the bullfrog. Yeah.
Let's hear it.
Those are birds.
So I'm interested, basically, it sounds like you describe what they sound like based off of another sound. Is that what volunteers are supposed to be using as well?
Yes. So we train our volunteers, again, to identify the calls of all the different species. And so we have a training workshop, and we have an app that a volunteer made a number of years ago to help learn the calls. And so the volunteers learn, again, the 7 species of frog and the 1 species of toad. And they go out to a 1/4 mile square block in their neighborhood that is within the Rouge River watershed. They go out in the evenings from when it gets warm, and that can be anywhere from, February anymore through March. Early April is generally when they're out, and then they survey through July, and they go out a few times a month and just record presence and absence based on the calls that they're hearing. And we have either physical data sheets, paper data sheets, or we have a nice survey on your phone. And again, the surveyors learn all of that, and they often come back year after year. The survey we've done since 1998, and have surveyors that have gone out for decades to do this. And you can also go out with your friends and your family. It's a great thing to do with your kids, and they can learn about the different species that they have in their neighborhood. It's often in your neighborhood, if you have habitat, we'll assign you right in your home. So you can go where you're out with your dog walking, or, we've had grandparent take his, grandkid out with them. So.
Okay. I'm curious, just briefly, how did 2025 go? And then just to kind of zoom out here, how can prospective volunteers learn a little bit more if they want to get involved?
So we found that some of our what we're calling our early calling species, so the wood frog is an example of one. Because we've had kind of chaotic springs with freeze-thaw cycles, we found last year that we had fewer early calling species that surveyors were able to track, but we did get a good number of blocks that were surveyed. So you can look at we create a report for everyone, and that's on our website, and we kind of list the full, our full data set through the Frog and Toad report that's on our website. And then our next training for volunteers is February 21st, Saturday, February 21st at 10 a.m. at the Livonia Civic Library. And we'll go over the full survey, and you'll learn the calls and sign up for a block near your home.
Well, if those audio calls weren't inviting enough, getting out in nature has got to be a pretty fun way to spend your evenings when it gets warmer. Lauren Eaton, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
That's score 1 for Citizen Science. And that's everything we have for Brother Nature this week. Fox 2 Detroit Live is coming up next.